Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us for the second part of our story. Let's jump right back in. That night in his apartment, Mikey reviewed surveillance photos of Rick's increasingly erratic behavior. The bar owner's drinking had gotten worse, his temper more volatile by the day. Tank's confession broke Richard, Clara observed, studying the reports. The old man really didn't know about Rick's violence. He suspected, Mikey replied. But suspicion isn't proof. Tank gave him confirmation from someone he trusts, a fellow Catholic seeking forgiveness. And the evidence of Eloise's stealing. Margaret's been collecting proof for years. A note of satisfaction crept into Mikey's voice. She watched them corrupt Richard's legacy. Now she's helping us save it. His phone lit up with a new text from Sam. Rick just trashed his office, screaming about betrayal. Leah's trying to calm him down. They're unraveling. Phase 3 begins tomorrow, Mikey stated. The board of directors meets to review the new trust structure. Rick will try to contest the will. Can he win? Mikey's expression turned predatory. Kate has arranged a surprise for the probate hearing. Rick's ex-wives. They're testifying about his pattern of fraud and coercion. Clara studied him. You're enjoying this. Rick and Leah had believed they were the hunters. Mikey's voice carried no remorse. They're learning what it means to hunt something trained to kill. The next morning, Richard Bennett signed his new will with steady hands. Within hours, Rick's lawyers were already filing challenges. But Mikey had anticipated every move. Your brother can't help him this time, Kate Walsh informed Mikey over the phone. Derek's too busy dealing with internal affairs. Anonymous tips about his corruption piqued their interest. Mikey hung up just as David Rodriguez arrived with fresh intel. Rick's drinking at the Red Door, David reported. Leah is trying to do damage control, but the staff is talking. They know the empire is crumbling. Good. Mikey studied his wall of evidence. Time to accelerate their fall. The Red Door's financial records lay open on the boardroom table, each page telling a damning story of fraud. Rick Bennett sat with his head in his hands while Leah paced behind him, her expensive heels clicking on the floor. This audit is a witch hunt. Rick's lawyer protested. My client inherited these accounting practices from his father. Board member William Chin raised an eyebrow. Interesting, because our forensic accountants traced the irregularities to the exact moment Mr. Bennett took over the Red Door's operations. Leah placed a hand on Rick's shoulder. Baby, we can explain. Shut up. Rick shrugged her off, the smell of alcohol heavy on his breath at 10 in the morning. This is your fault. You promised you could handle the books. The board members exchanged glances. This was the son Richard Bennett had warned them about. Given these findings, Chin continued, the board has no choice but to terminate your employment, Mr. Bennett. The Red Door will be sold to minimize further liability. You can't. Rick shot to his feet. This is my family's company. It was, another board member corrected. Your father's will was quite clear. The trust has full authority. Rick's fist slammed against the table. I'll fight this. Officer Wilson is under investigation himself. He can be pressured. I doubt he'll be much help. Someone cut in. Leah watched helplessly as their carefully built plan crumbled, taking their future with it. Back at the Red Door, she found Rick tearing apart his office. We'll fix this, she insisted, dodging a thrown whiskey bottle. We still have my inheritance from Mikey's company. Her laugh died when she saw Rick's expression. You mean the company that mysteriously folded last year? He scoffed. Wake up, Leah. We're finished. No, she protested. The Red Door is profitable. We can buy it ourselves. With what money? Rick slumped into his chair. The board froze my accounts. The allowance barely covers my car payments. Leah's mind raced. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Mikey should have been broken, defeated. But instead, Mikey, she whispered. Rick sneered. Your ex. He's in Philadelphia, remember? This is my father's doing, and Eloise's betrayal. But Leah remembered something else. She remembered Mikey's promise that night in the alley, the cold edge in his voice. She had forgotten what he was, not just a construction worker with PTSD, but a Marine Corps sniper trained to dismantle targets. The next blow came through Isabel Gonzalez. The bartender's sexual harassment lawsuit named both Rick and Leah as defendants. More employees came forward, detailing a pattern of abuse. Ms. Gonzalez has extensive documentation, Kate Walsh informed the board, including text messages, witness statements, and security footage that somehow survived the Red Door's frequent camera malfunctions. The board's decision was swift. The Red Door would be sold immediately. Leah watched helplessly as potential buyers toured the property. Each time she tried to make an offer, financial institutions denied her loan applications. Her perfect credit had mysteriously developed problems. The final buyer remained anonymous, working through shell companies. Leah only learned the truth when Isabel Gonzalez was promoted to general manager. The new owner values experienced staff, Isabel told her, eyes gleaming with cold satisfaction. Rick's downward spiral continued. Banned from all Bennett Hospitality Group properties, he drifted into dive bars, drinking through the nights and ranting about conspiracies. We should have finished him, he slurred one evening. Made sure he died in that alley. Leah stared at her fallen lover, recalling Mikey's quiet strength even as Rick beat him. She had mistaken his control for weakness, his precision for limitation. Then came the final blow. The Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board's investigation shattered Rick's last hopes. Years of violations led to massive fines, and as the license holder, he was personally liable. I can't pay this, he told Leah, thrusting the papers at her. I'm ruined. She glanced around their apartment, once a symbol of luxury, now reduced to what little they could afford. We'll survive, she insisted. We still have each other. Rick let out a bitter laugh. Wake up, Leah. You were just part of the con like all the others. What others? The ex-wives, he spat. Dear old Dad's lawyer tracked them all down. They're testifying about my pattern of fraud. It was over. Leah watched him pack a bag that night, knowing he wouldn't return. Like Mikey, she had been a mark in someone else's game. Unlike Mikey, she had never seen it coming. Alone in the emptying apartment, she finally understood. Mikey hadn't just survived their attack. He had weaponized it. Every method they had used against him, he had turned back on them. Rick's empire, her dreams, their future, destroyed with the same calculated precision they had once relied on. The next day, the red door sign came down. Leah stood across the street, watching workers prepare for renovation. The new name was already painted on the windows, Donovan's. 3 years had transformed the red door into Donovan's. The grime of corruption had been replaced with clean lines and professional management. Mikey adjusted his tie as he approached the entrance, timing his arrival precisely. Behind the bar, Leah was stationed at the slowest shift of the day, her punishment for past ambitions. Her designer wardrobe had been replaced by a simple black uniform, her once manicured nails now chipped. She froze the moment Mikey walked in, recognition hitting like a physical blow. Table for two, he said, his voice carrying. Across the hushed room, Isabel Gonzalez, now the general manager, approached with professional courtesy. Mr. Donovan, your usual booth is ready. Leah's hands trembled as she arranged the bottles, every movement heavy with his presence, like a sniper's laser sight between her shoulder blades. 3 years of unanswered questions suddenly made sense. The anonymous buyer, the precise dismantling of Rick's life, the calculated mercy of keeping her employed. You're looking well, Mikey remarked as he reached the bar, his tone casual. Better than Rick, from what I hear. How's he enjoying life in his car? The glass in Leah's hand nearly slipped. You did all this. How? Mikey's gaze was steady. I made a promise that night, Leah. His words carried the weight of inevitability. Unlike you, I keep my promises. Memories of that alley crashed into her. Her laughter as Rick's brass knuckles met flesh, her cold dismissal of Mikey's pain. She had thought him weak then, bound by morality, by law. She hadn't seen the tactical assessment in his eyes, the strategy forming even as blood poured from his wounds. From the yoga studio stairs on the renovated upper floor, Sam watched in silence, guilt a familiar companion. She had chosen loyalty to Leah over warning Mikey, and for 3 years that choice had haunted her, as had the aftermath of his revenge. Now, she taught classes, each session a reminder of choices made and consequences faced. Your usual drink, sir? Leah asked, her voice barely steady. Scotch neat, and whatever Clara is having when she arrives. The mention of his new relationship twisted like a knife in Leah's gut. Clara Martinez had everything Leah had thrown away. Mikey's trust, his protection, his precision now used to build rather than destroy. Around the bar, staff members exchanged knowing looks. They had witnessed Leah's fall from general manager to a bartender stuck on the slowest shifts. They had seen her dreams of ownership shatter against Mikey's implacable revenge. I never thought, Leah began. That's your problem. Mikey cut her off. You never thought beyond the immediate goal. 3 years, Leah. 3 years of planning. 3 years of watching you and Rick celebrate your victory, while I dismantled everything you built. His tone was calm, matter-of-fact. The business account transfers traced and documented, Rick's fraud exposed, the Bennett family empire restructured, Officer Wilson's protection neutralized. Every word landed with precision, each one another weight pressing down on Leah. You taught me about betrayal, Mikey said. I taught you about consequences. Leah gripped the bar for support as the full magnitude of his revenge set in. You destroyed everything, she whispered. No, Mikey corrected. I let you destroy yourselves. I just made sure there was nowhere to hide. No one to protect you. No escape from the weight of your choices. The door opened, and Clara Martinez entered, her scrubs exchanged for elegant evening wear. She kissed Mikey's cheek, the casual intimacy a stark contrast to Leah's isolation. "Your drinks, sir?" Leah murmured, placing them on the bar with shaking hands. Mikey watched her retreat, but there was no triumph in his expression. He had promised consequences that night in the alley. Promises made in blood required repayment in full. Danny Peterson savored the weight of the handcuffs in his pocket as he approached Rick Bennett's last refuge, a cheap motel on the outskirts of Pittsburgh. 3 years of watching his best friend execute the perfect revenge had taught him patience. "Police, open up." The door cracked open, revealing Rick's disheveled face. The former bar owner had traded tailored suits for worn jeans, his once confident swagger now replaced with desperation and paranoia. "What now?" Rick snapped. "Haven't you people taken enough?" Danny held up a warrant. "Rick Bennett, you're under arrest for investment fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit attempted murder." Rick scoffed. "Attempted what? What the hell are you talking about?" "The night you tried to kill Mikey Donovan." Satisfaction flickered in Danny's eyes as he continued. "We have sworn statements from multiple witnesses, including Tank Biggs and your stepmother, Eloise." Rick's face twisted with fury. "Eloise? That treacherous?" Danny interrupted, enjoying Rick's dawning realization. "Full immunity in exchange for everything she knows about your illegal activities, including those offshore accounts you used to hide her embezzlement." "You can't prove any of this," Rick snapped. "Actually, we can." Danny pulled out another document. "Eloise kept records. Tank kept evidence. And Mikey," he smiled. "Mikey kept his promise." Recognition flickered in Rick's eyes. "Donovan, this whole time, 3 years?" Danny said as he began reciting Rick's rights. 3 years of watching you dig your own grave. You just made sure I couldn't climb out," Rick muttered. Across the street, Mikey and Clara watched as the arrest unfolded. Other officers arrived, executing simultaneous warrants on Rick's storage units and safety deposit boxes. "Eloise's information was comprehensive," Clara noted. "Fear does that," Mikey replied. She saw the evidence against her, recognized the pattern from Rick's ex-wives. In the end, self-preservation won out over loyalty. They watched as Rick was led away, placed into the back of a police car, his protests fading into defeated silence. "Was it worth the wait?" Clara asked softly. Mikey considered the years of planning, the precise manipulation of events, the cold satisfaction of watching his enemies destroy themselves. "They tried to kill me and take everything I had," he replied. "I returned the favor, just more efficiently." Later that evening, Kate Walsh called with an update. "Rick's lawyers are scrambling, but the evidence is solid. Between Eloise's records and Tank's testimony, he's facing serious time. The attempted murder charge probably won't stick," she admitted. "But the financial crimes will. The feds are very interested in those offshore accounts. Seems Rick was helping others hide money too, including some people who don't like attention." Mikey absorbed the information with clinical detachment. "And my dear brother? His career is over," Kate confirmed. "Internal Affairs found exactly what we expected. He's looking at charges of his own." Everything had fallen into place exactly as Mikey had planned. Rick's protection network had crumbled, his allies had turned against him, and in the end, his own arrogance had been his downfall. Donovan's thrived under its new management, its dark past transformed into something productive. Mikey surveyed the renovated space, noting how the support group meeting areas blended seamlessly with the bar's public sections. Leah approached his table, carrying his usual drink. 3 months had passed since Rick's arrest, each day a reminder of her role in her own downfall. "Your drink, sir," she said, her voice carrying the weight of understanding. "And as usual for Clara as well," he replied. "Thank you, Leah." His politeness was devoid of warmth. "How are those night classes going?" he asked. "I hear business management is quite challenging." Leah hurried away, fighting tears. The classes had been his idea, a requirement for her continued employment. Each lesson in proper business ethics served as a reminder of how she had helped Rick defraud Mikey's company. Tank Biggs, now head of security, watched her retreat. His redemption had come through confession and restitution. Leah's came through daily reminders of her choices. "The foundation board meets next week," Clara mentioned as she joined Mikey. "Margaret Blake has some wonderful ideas for expanding the support services." Mikey nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. Richard Bennett's final act, creating a foundation for survivors, had turned his son's instrument of corruption into a force for healing. "Bennett Hospitality Group approved the renovation contracts," he added. "All 12 locations will be updated, starting with the original bar from 1955, and paying for it with Rick's hidden accounts." Clara noted, "Poetic justice." Mikey agreed. His attempt to destroy me ended up funding the restoration of his father's legacy. They watched Leah moving mechanically through her shift, serving customers with the air of someone going through the motions. She had lost everything. Her lover, her dreams of ownership, her reputation. But most of all, she had lost the good man she had betrayed, forced to witness his transformation of her weapon into his triumph. Regular patrons often wondered why Mikey kept his ex-wife employed. They didn't understand his victory wasn't in Leah's suffering, but in turning her betrayal into strength. "Your family still won't speak to her?" Clara asked. "Melanie made that clear at our wedding," Mikey recalled. His sister had fiercely protected him throughout his recovery. They understand the price of betrayal. The wedding had been small but deeply significant. Danny had stood as his best man. Vicky Martinez had given away the bride, and Melanie had ensured the legal documentation was flawless. Leah had watched from behind the bar, serving drinks to celebrate a happiness she had thrown away. "Sam's yoga classes are full," Clara said, shifting the conversation. "The studio space had been a worthwhile investment," Mikey agreed. Sam Richardson had transformed her guilt into action, using her skills to help survivors rebuild their strength. Once, her loyalty to Leah had cost her. Now, it served a greater purpose. "The Veterans Program needs more space," Sam mentioned as she joined them. Danny's police contacts keep sending new referrals. Danny Peterson had risen to the rank of police commissioner, his reputation for absolute integrity built on the ruins of Officer Wilson's corruption. The disgraced officer had died in prison 2 years into his sentence. His once powerful protection network dismantled by the very investigation Mikey had set in motion. "Melanie's firm can help with the expansion permits," Mikey suggested. Melanie Donovan's law practice specialized in protecting abuse survivors and veterans. Her work dismantling Rick Bennett's empire had shaped her career, and she had recently won a landmark case against a business using Rick's old tactics: seduction and fraud. "How's Rick doing?" Chin asked, a trace of dark humor in his voice. Mikey's expression remained neutral, still in medium security. The fraud charges stuck, even if the attempted murder didn't. His appeal was denied last month. Rick Bennett's downfall had become a cautionary tale in Pittsburgh's business circles. Though his prison sentence was officially for financial crimes, it carried the weight of all his sins. The former playboy who once tried to kill his lover's husband now shuffled through prison halls, his arrogance long since replaced by bitter regret. "Eloise offered to contribute to the foundation again," Clara added as she approached. Mikey considered Richard Bennett's widow, the woman who had chosen self-preservation over loyalty to her stepson. Her immunity deal had kept her out of prison, but her life was a shadow of what it once was, her stolen wealth reclaimed by the company. "Same answer as before," Mikey decided. "She can donate, but her name stays off everything. Richard's legacy deserves better." The mention of Richard Bennett drew their attention to Margaret Blake, the former private nurse, whose testimony had helped dismantle Rick's inheritance. Now in her 70s, served on the foundation's board, ensuring Richard's final wishes continued to shape its mission. "Tank's running the security training program at 3 locations now," Isabel reported. Tank Biggs had turned his redemption into a career, helping others escape the kind of bad choices he once made. His confession in Richard Bennett's hospital room had been the first domino in Rick's downfall. Now, he trained security staff to protect the vulnerable instead of exploiting them. As the gala continued around them, Pittsburgh's elite mingled with program graduates and success stories. Mikey watched it all with the same tactical precision that had once guided his revenge, measuring angles, assessing outcomes, ensuring success. "The new manager at the original Bennett location is doing well," Chin noted. "Interesting choice hiring Rick's first ex-wife, Sarah Mitchell. Rick's earliest victim had rebuilt her catering business through the foundation's programs. Now, she managed the very bar where Rick had begun his cycle of seduction and fraud. Her success represented everything Rick had tried to destroy." "The documentary crew finished filming yesterday," Clara mentioned. "They're calling it Donovan's Law, breaking the cycle of abuse in the service industry." Mikey nodded, recalling the interview they had requested. He had given them 10 minutes of cold, unfiltered facts. His military service, the attack, his calculated revenge. The producer had described his lack of emotion as chilling. Mikey called it precision. As the night wound down, the staff moved efficiently through their closing routine. Leah worked through her tasks, the weight of a decade's consequence visible in her posture. 5 years in, she had asked Mikey why he kept her employed. "Because watching you serve drinks in my bar hurts more than prison ever could," he had replied. "Because seeing your dreams die slowly teaches more than a swift punishment. Because you thought 3 years of helping me through PTSD made me weak. Now you've had 10 years to see exactly what I am." She lived in a small apartment 3 blocks away, her attempts to find other work mysteriously failing. The service industry network Clara had built served dual purposes: supporting survivors and ensuring betrayers faced lasting consequences. Meanwhile, Mikey's construction company, reorganized under new management, had grown into a major contractor. Their specialty was transforming distressed properties into community service centers. Every project was executed with the precision Mikey had honed as a scout sniper. Assess, plan, execute with zero margin for error. The Donovan Foundation's latest initiative focused on prevention, teaching people how to recognize predatory patterns in business and relationships. They used Rick and Leah's story as a case study, proving that abusers targeted perceived weakness without realizing they were provoking something far more dangerous. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette called it redemption through reconstruction. Clara noted, showing Mikey the latest article. He disagreed with the term. This wasn't redemption. It was reconstruction, using the enemy's weapons against them. Rick had tried to take everything from him, even his life. Instead, Mikey had taken everything from Rick and built something stronger. Security cameras tracked Leah's movements as she closed up, constant reminders of the night 10 years ago when disabled cameras had enabled betrayal. Now, they recorded every moment of her serving drinks in a bar that bore her ex-husband's name, a prisoner of her own choices. Mikey and Clara's marriage had deepened over the decade, forged through a shared understanding of survival and strength. Their daughter, Margaret, named after the nurse who had helped dismantle Rick's empire, would never mistake kindness for weakness. The board of directors at Bennett Hospitality Group still marveled at what Mikey had done with the company. They had expected him to destroy it in revenge. Instead, he had rebuilt it stronger, turning Rick's poison into medicine. As they left the gala, Mikey caught sight of Tank Biggs training new security recruits. The former bouncer had learned the hard way that strength without honor was self-destructive. Now, he taught others how to recognize predators, whether they wore business suits or brass knuckles. The name Donovan glowed against Pittsburgh's night sky, visible from the alley where Rick and Leah had once tried to kill a broken Marine. A decade later, that same alley hosted self-defense classes led by Vicky Martinez, now a police captain. Leah watched them leave, as she had for the past 10 years. Her true punishment wasn't lost wealth or status. It was witnessing Mikey Donovan, the man she had once dismissed as weak and controllable, rise from the ruins of her betrayal to build an empire. The regulars still wondered why Mikey kept his ex-wife employed. They didn't understand that some lessons required daily reinforcement. Leah had taught Mikey about betrayal. He had spent 10 years teaching her about consequences. In his office overlooking the bar, Mikey reviewed the foundation's latest expansion plans. The Bennett family's original bar, established in 1955, would soon become their flagship training center. Richard Bennett's legacy, nearly destroyed by his son's arrogance, would now serve to prevent future predators from mistaking military precision for weakness. Was it worth the wait? Clara asked, echoing the same question she had posed a decade ago. Mikey considered the fates of those who had once stood against him. Rick rotting in prison, Leah condemned to a life of quiet servitude, Officer Wilson dead in disgrace, and Eloise surviving in reduced circumstances. Then he thought of the Foundation's success stories, the lives rebuilt, the predatory cycles broken. They tried to kill a Marine Scout sniper, he said. Instead, they gave him a mission. His expression held no regret, no mercy, no forgiveness. Some people learned too late that attacking someone trained to dismantle threats only ensured their own destruction. The security cameras captured Leah's reflection as she braced herself for another night alone beneath the glowing Donovan sign. 10 years of consequences had taught her what 3 tours in Afghanistan had taught Mikey. Some enemies don't seek victory. They seek the total elimination of threats. The regulars at Donovan might wonder about their owner's motives, but Mikey understood the power of relentless consequences. In the end, his revenge wasn't about destroying his enemies. It was about ensuring they lived long enough to watch him turn their weapons into his triumph. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.